Okay, our topic, actually in one word, is anti-Semitism, but I gave it over here specific title, Israel and Germany, the battle over the leadership. What we will try to do is go to what the Torah teaches us about the roots of the anti-Semitism. In general, I could say that anti-Semitism is something that people try to explain in every generation, every event, but all the explanations that we have are not enough. There is something even deeper that it's really amazing why we are so hated as a nation during the history. So in this particular lecture, I want to go to the base of it according to the Torah, and I'll try even to mention a few things from the deeper sources, from the Kabbalah. But let's start from the simple, the pshat of the Torah. I want to start in certain point. It's obviously not the beginning, but it's the beginning in the pshat level. There is something deeper, and if we'll have time, we'll cover it later on. Anti-Semitism is old as the age of our nation. Since we came to this world, this phenomena started, and the main point was actually describing the Torah with a conflict that seems like a personal conflict between Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav, the sons of Yitzchak. Yaakov was the third generation from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Yaakov, in a way, was the point of when the three, in the Kabbalah it's mentioned that there is something called Ha'ilan Shel Klal Nishmot Israel, the tree of all the souls of the Jewish nation. And this tree divided to 4 parts. The trunk, which is number 1, 2, and 3, meaning Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The next level is the 12 tribes, 12 Ashvatim. The next level is the 70 people who went with Yaakov Avinu to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, Shiv'im Yordei Mitzrayim. And the entire tree of souls are the 600,000 Yotzei Mitzrayim. And the Kabbalah says that there are only 600,000 souls in the Jewish nation. But every soul is actually, those 600,000 are the root, the main. From one could divide to a few. It's called Nitzotzot Neshama, the same Neshama. Even though today we have, not just today, more than 600,000 Jews, but there are 6,000 major souls. Okay, so now we're going to review the history, and we'll go to a story that happened at the time of Yaakov Avinu. Actually, not just in his life, but even before he was born. And the story described, probably the pshat level of it, the simple level of it, is very known to everybody over here in this room. But let's go anyways to the verses, to the psukim in the Tanakh, to see what the Torah tells us about it. I'm going to Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Toldot, Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. You have here the translation to English, and something about translation. Translation is always not good. It always reduces a lot, especially when you translate to any language from the Holy Language. The Holy Language is so rich and so there is wisdom in every detail, in every letter, and of course the roots of the words and etc. But if you need the translation, it's here. I will read the original. So the Torah described the following: "Ve'ele toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham הוליד את יצחק. ויהי יצחק בן 40 שנה, בקחתו את רבקה בת בתואל הארמי מפדן ארם, אחות לבן הארמי לא לאישה. So the Torah described here that Yitzchak was 40 years old when he got married and to Rivka, and they were childless for a long time, for almost 20 years. And Yitzchak prayed to God. ויעתר יצחק להשם לנוכח אשתו כי עקרה היא, ויעתר לו השם ותהה רבקה אשתו. But it took time. So we see, be aware of the numbers. He was 40 years when he got married, right? His children was born when he was 60, as we will see later on. Okay? Now, after this long time, finally Rivka is pregnant. But the pregnant story of Rivka was very unique, very unusual. Let's see. ויתרוצצו הבנים בקרבה ותאמר אם כן למה זה אנוכי ותלך לדרוש את השם. The children were in conflict in her womb, and she understood that it's not a biological problem. There is something deeper than this. So she went to understand it. She asked, what's going on? And look over here, he had started. Hashem told her the following, ויאמר השם לה, שני גויים בבטנך ושני לאומים ממאייך ייפרדו ולאום מלאום יאמץ ורב יעבוד צעיר. So here Hashem talking to her, and Hashem says to her and described to her that what's actually happening right now during the pregnancy is just the promo, it's just the beginning of something big that's going to happen during the history. First of all, Hashem told her, those two fetus are going to be two fathers of two nations. And the same conflict that those two fetus now experiencing during the pregnancy, going to be during the history from two nations that will come out from those two babies. שני גויים בבטנך. גויים, nations are in your womb. Two nations from your inside. Okay, separated. Now, he said the following. ולאום מלאום יאמץ. It will be a conflict, a fight between those two nations. And another interesting thing is that he told her, ורב יעבוד צעיר. And the older will be under the younger later on. Okay? Now, what we have to know that it seems like those amazing information, this amazing information was given to Rivka only. And Rivka didn't tell her husband about it. Okay? Fine, the pregnancy finished. She was about to deliver them. And when the delivery occurred, also something very interesting happened. וימלאו ימיה ללדת והנה יתומים בבטנה. You know, it was not a sonogram before, so only when the actual delivery happened, they realized that there are two babies, right? But Hashem told her in advance that there are two babies. But here is a description of the delivery. ויצא הראשון אדמוני, כולו כעדרת שיער, ויקראו שמו עשיו. ואחרי כן יצא אחי, וידו אוחזת בעקב עשיו, ויקרא שמו יעקב, ויצחק בן 60 שנה בלדת אותם. Let's just explain a few things about it. So, there were two. The first one, the Torah described him as a very unusual baby. He was hairy. He was hairy, covered with hair from toe to the top of his head. And the hair was red. He was a redhead. Actually, not just a redhead, a red hair all over. Gingy. From his toes, kulo כעדרת שיער. Okay? ואחרי כן יצא אחיו, and after him came his brother, וידו אוחזת בעקב עשיו. And his hand was holding the heel of his brother. What is the meaning of this? And therefore they called him Yaakov. Because in Hebrew again, Yaakov, heel is akev. Yaakov is somebody who hold the heel, hold the akev, right? This is the simple description of the Torah. Now, in every pasuk in the Torah, there are 4 levels. Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod, right? The 4 levels. I will usually go on the Pshat, on the simple, but it will be good also to just have a glimpse to the deeper meaning of it. So what we have to try to understand is the meaning of the fact that Esav was hairy since he was born. And hair covered him completely. This is one thing. The other thing, the hair was red, and the Torah mentioned that. And it's not just, by chance. There is a deep meaning for this. What is the meaning of hair? What is the meaning of red hair? Right? And more than that, and again, for this you need to know a little bit about Hebrew. ויצא הראשון את בני כולו כדרך שיער ויקראו שמו עשיו. So, why they named him Esav? What is the meaning of the word Esav? The meaning of the word Yaakov I explained before, because he was holding the heel, and the heel is Akev in Hebrew. But why Esav called Esav? So the answer for this is, the word Esav are from the letter Asa. Asa is doer. He's doer, or he's done. Because he was hairy, and even hairy men usually become hairy at the age of 14, 15, 16 when a baby who was born hairy and the hair covered all of him, he was done. Therefore they called him Esav, because he was done, okay? In Hebrew. Because Asui. ואחרי כן יצא אחיו ידו אוחזת בעקב עשיו, the meaning of this, it was a conflict between them, even during the pregnancy. Look, ויתרוצצו הבנים. What is the meaning of ויתרוצצו? They were chasing each other, running after each other during the pregnancy. So they didn't feel comfortable with each other. Each one of them, it was a competition between them. And each one wants to be higher than the other during the pregnancy. The name of the game is the combat for the leadership, the battle over the leadership. This is the name of the game. So during the pregnancy, that's what happened. And when Rivka came and Hashem told her, in prophecy, he told her that this is what's going to happen during the history from out of those 2 nations that's going to come out of this. Okay. Now, during the pregnancy, it was a conflict. And one of the major junctions over here was the moment of the delivery. Because the moment of the delivery will actually, according to it, we will know who is the firstborn. And the firstborn is the leader. Bechor, again, in Hebrew. In English, it's firstborn. How do you say firstborn in Hebrew? Bechor. Bechor are the letters, the root of the word Bechor are the letters Bet, Chaf, and Resh. Bet, Chaf, and Resh is the root also of the word in Hebrew. We're using it in the modern Hebrew, but there is a source for this even in the old Hebrew. Bachir. What's Bachir? Bachir is senior. So it's come from the same root, Bechor. So the one who will be the firstborn is the Bechor, and he has the benefit over his brother. So according to this, we could understand what happened when they came out. The first one that jumped out was Esav. So he won. He is the firstborn. But it seems that Yaakov didn't give up so quickly, and he was holding him in his heel, wants to change it, push him back in, and came out instead of him. But he lost. He lost this battle, right? So therefore, his name was Yaakov. Yaakov, in a way, the name describe him as under Esav. He's holding him in his heel, right? He's under him. You have to remember, probably you know it, that Yaakov was the name of Yaakov, but Yaakov has another name. And we are the children of Yaakov, but we are called the children of Yisrael. The name Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, all of this is our name, right? So from where came the name Israel? When Yaakov was born, the Torah says that Yitzchak and Rivka called him Yaakov, right? So the name Israel is a name that came later on, and it's very, very interesting because another thing, by the way, that we have to know, that names in Hebrew are not a simple thing. They are very, very deep. Every name is a description of the person. And actually, in the Kabbalah sources, the name is the description of the mission of what everyone that has this name, any name, is what is mission in the world. Why we are here. The description of our spiritual character is by the name. Okay? So when Yaakov has, when he was born, this name Yaakov, and later on it was changed to Israel or added the name Israel, this is very meaningful. Okay, let's see. ויצחק בן 60 שנה בלדת אותם, as we said, it was 20 years. It took 20 years since they got married until they have those two children. Now, the Torah continues and says, ויגדלו הנערים, ויהי עשיו איש יודע ציד איש שדה, ויעקב אשתם יושב אוהלים. Don't worry, I remember that our topic is anti-Semitism. And until now we just try to analyze verses that probably wondering how it's going to lead us to there, right? Okay, be patient because I have a problem. I was born Yakish, if you know what is this. So I'm very thorough and I have to go to every detail because it's very important. I can't see what I could skip over here. So, but, you know, the benefit will be later on when you put all the details together. Okay, ויגדלו הנערים, ויהי עשיו איש יודע ציד איש שדה ויעקב אשתם יושב אוהלים. The Torah described that even though we're talking about twins, their character were completely different. One of them was a doer, Esau. Esau, we said, Asa, Asui, he was a doer. So he was a hunter, right? And he was always in the field hunting. His brother was completely different than him. He was not interested in hunting and going out. He was a house person that was Yoshev Ohalim. He was in the intellectual side. He was learner and he was not interested in the earthly thing, right? This is the simple understanding of this pasuk. In the deeper level, in the Kabbalah sources, it mentioned that the description of the character of those two children connected to the first verse in the Tanakh, to the first pasuk in Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So I spoke about this many times in the past, but some of you heard this. I don't want to repeat all of this because it's very long. Shamayim ve'aretz, in brief, Shamayim is the spiritual dimension of the universe, and Aretz is not planet Earth, but the physical dimension of the universe. So in the Kabbalah sources it's mentioned that it's connected, that those two kids actually divided between them the area of interest. Esau was what Chazal says, our sages called this kind of people, Am Haaretz, the nation of the earth, or a people that interested in physical. They Am Haaretz. So Esau took the physical, and he knew, Esau, that there is a spiritual dimension also. But between those two, his philosophy was that the physical is the major, and the spiritual has some room if it will help the physical. The philosophy of Yaakov was just the opposite. The Shamayim, the spiritual, is the main thing. The physical is the mean for the goal, which is the spiritual, right? So when we're talking about the conflict, as we saw until here, between the two of them when they were fetus, between the two of them when they were children, kids, between the nation that's going to come from out of both of them, it's here more in a higher level. This is the conflict between spirituality and physical. What is the mean and what is the goal? This conflict has, a lot of implication. in philosophy, in psychology, because each one of us also have a body, which is physical, and an neshama, a soul, it's spiritual. And we have some conflict. Who is the leader? Is our soul, great, amazing spiritual soul, is just the servant of the body, or vice versa? The body should be the vehicle for the soul. All of this, including this, as I said before, in the deeper level, it's much more than it seems over here. Okay, let's go. Let's see where we're going from here. Fine. So the Torah described that they grew up a little bit, and now come a major story in their life. We're talking about them as individuals, not as fathers for the nation that's going to come from them, but as individuals. And this is the famous story of the Nazid. How do you say Nazid? A stew. Okay. The Torah described, וירזד יעקב נזיר, ויבוא עשיו מן השדה והוא עייף. One day, Yaakov was at home making for himself a dinner. The dinner was a red stew. And his brother Esav came very tired from outside after a long, tiring day of hunting. So Esav came to Yaakov and says to him the following. He asked him, הל ייתני נא מן האדום הזה כי עייף אנוכי, על כן קרא שמו אדום. So he didn't ask him, share with me your dinner. He was so hungry, he said, hal iteni. I don't know how they translate it here. Pour into me. Could you imagine? He was so hungry. Pour into me. I'm opening my mouth. Pour it in. What? The red stuff. Remember, he was a redhead. And he liked red stuff. And here he didn't even care what is this. It's red. It smells good. I'm hungry. Pour it into me. But the Torah says that, הל ייתני נא מן האדום הזה, כי עייף אנוכי, על כן קרא שמו אדום. And here's a very big thing. As we saw before, Hashem told Rivka that going to be two nations out of those two babies. One of the nation are we, the Jewish nation, right? But who is the nation that come out of Esav? There's no nation in the world called Esav nation, but there is a nation in the world that's called Edomites. So the Edomites came from Esav. And Esav, the Torah mentioned even later on that Esav hu avi Edom. So when we now going to look to the history, we have to know that there is a nation in the world from the descendants of Esau through Edom, that this is the nation that we're going to have a constant conflict with it between those two nations, the Jewish nation and the Edomites. We'll see later on what that means. Okay, now another thing that we have to add over here, that according to the Kabbalah, there are meaning to the colors. The colors, every color has spiritual meaning or intellectual meaning or something that it represents. Red is a very strong color, very, screaming color. Red is strong color. So according to the Kabbalah, red represent the physical. The physical dimension, physicality is red. The opposite of red is white. White represent purity, spirituality. So here again, we see there were twins, but one of them was covered by red. Covered by red, meaning the red was his. The thing that he represents, the thing that he likes, and it's fit everything that we said so far. Okay, so what happened? He was hungry, he came home, he saw this red stew, he asked Yaakov to pour it to him. Yaakov told him the following, ויאמר יעקב, מכרה כיום את בכורתך לי. Probably from here, we, the Jews, got the business mind. The business mind, the business interest from Yaakov. Yaakov wants to make a business with him. You know what, you're hungry, I made this for myself, but if you really want it, let's make a deal. Remember, we have an old conflict about who is the Bechor, and you are the firstborn, right? Do you mind to sell to me the rights of the sale of the firstborn, and I'll give you the reds too. That was the deal that he offered
He
him.
says, sell me. He didn't say, do you mind? He didn't ask if he mind.
Okay. I mean, he offered him. You so hungry. This is my dinner. I'm going to give it to you. You will give me instead the rights of the firstborn. ויאמר יעקב מכרה כיום את בכורתך לי. So what was the answer of Esau? He has to answer for this. What is his response? He said something very vague. ויאמר עשיו, הנה אנוכי הולך למות, ולמה זה לי בכורה? I'm a hunter. I'm always, every morning go out to the field. Who knows if I'm coming back home? I'm in always dangerous that I'm going to die. So what do I need the Bechorah? What do I need the firstborn rights? So apparently, as a response to the offer that Yaakov told him, it's a yes, right? But it's not a clear yes. And Yaakov didn't want to take any chances. So he told him, listen, okay, is that a yes? If it's a yes, could you swear for it? ויאמר יעקב הישבעה לי כיום, וישבע לו, וימכור את בכורתו ליעקב. So Yaakov signed him, make him sign on it, he swear on it, and it was a deal. And even though Esau was the firstborn biologically, from now on, it changed. All the firstborn rights came, Yaakov bought it. Yaakov bought it. The Torah continues and says, ויעקב נתן לעשיו לחם ונזיד עדשים, ויאכל וישת ויקום וילך, וייבז עשיו את הבכורה. So he gave him what he owed him. Okay, take the food, and he gave him even drink with it, right? What was the response of Esau? He ate, he drank and ate, and he despised it, as saying, you know what? It was a good deal. I'm satisfied now. And what I gave in return, the rights of firstborn, who cares? So he despised it. Later on, he's going to regret it, but it will be too late. But here's the story. Here's the story. Now we have those two children. One of them biologically is the firstborn, but the right of the firstborn was given to Yaakov. And if you remember, Hashem says to Rivka in the beginning, ולאום מלאום יאמץ ורב יעבוד צעיר. So Hashem hinted or said even clearly before that the old one will be under the young one. But he speaks about the nation, so during the history later on. Okay. Now we're jumping from chapter 25 to chapter 27. Many years passed, and here comes the story. ויהי כי זקן יצחק ותיקן לעיניו לראות, ויקרא את עשיו בנו הגדול, ויאמר אליו בני, ויאמר אליו הנני, ויאמר הננה זקנתי, לא ידעתי יום מותי. Yitzchak get old, he say, I'm not sure when I'm going to die, I want to bless you, and this blessing is not just a blessing, it's the will. I'm going to give you my will, my tzava'ah, right? But for that I want you. You always give me food during my life, but now go especially and hunt for me. That's what he asked him. ואתה שנה כלייך תלייך וקשתך וצא השדה וצודה לי ציד ועשה לי מטעמים כאשר אהבתי ואביאה לי ואוכלה בעבור תברכך נפשי בטרם אמות. I want to give you my blessing, I want to give you my will, but you have to do something. What do you have to do? Go now, hunt for me a fresh meat, make me the meal, and I will give you the blessing. Yitzchak, we have to know, never knew about two things. He never knew about the prophecy that Hashem gave to Rivka. She never told him. And he never knew about the story with the stew that Yaakov bought the firstborn rights. He never knew about this. So the Torah described, after he sent Esau went out to hunt. The Torah described that Rivka was listening to the entire thing, the entire conversation from the kitchen. And after he left Esau, she went to the room when Yaakov was sitting and learning. And she called him and said, listen, I have to tell you something. Your father sent your brother, he wants to give him the will. I want you to get this blessing. Your father is heavy, he could not see clearly. ויזקן יצחק ותיקנה עיניו מרעות, he could not see. So, you go out, get me a goat, I will make the food that your father loved, you will go to him as you Esau, and he will give you the blessing. So we have to know, the Torah says that the initiation for it, it was not the initiation of Yaakov, it was the initiation of his mother, Rivka. Now, how Yaakov respond to this? Apparently, it seems very, very hard to understand this. I mean, it's a lying, right? It's to trick the father, and it's a lying. And again, the initiation was not Yaakov, but what Yaakov says about this. Yaakov says to his mother, I don't think it's a good idea. He told her, I don't think it's a good idea. Why? Not because of a moral issue. It's very interesting that he doesn't have a moral issue with this. But he says, Yaakov, I'm smooth. But my brother Esau, he's hairy. It's true that my father could not see, but he could feel me. If he will feel me and he will see that I'm not hairy, he will discover the lie. And then he will not bless me, maybe he will do the opposite. That was the only thing that Yaakov has a problem with. Not the moral issue, but maybe he will be caught by his father, right? Rivka says, don't worry about it. I thought about it. Leave it for me. You do what I told you to do. Okay? So let's see what happened. Okay. It's mentioned in the verses that in between. I didn't give you... I'll tell it to you in Baal Peh, my heart. So what happened? After Yaakov said this to his mother and his mother calmed him down, don't worry, just do it. He brought her the goat, she made the food, and the Torah says that she did another thing. She took the clothes of Esav, et bigdei Esav bna hagadol hachamudot asher ita babayit, and he put it on Yaakov. And when she took the goat, she took the skin of the goat. She cooked the meat, right? But the skin was extra. She took the skin of the goat on his hands and on his chest. Just in case his father will feel him, he will not realize that he is not hairy. Okay? And it was a good trick because that's what happened. So the food was ready. Yaakov took the food, took the tray, went to the room of his father. His father was a little bit surprised that it was too quickly. And he asked what's going on. And Yaakov told him it was okay. Hashem made me find it very easy. Okay. Now, Yitzchak has some suspicions. Why? Because in the beginning, when Yaakov entered the room, he asked him, who are you? And he said, I'm Esau. But because Esau was a hairy guy, and he has probably a very deep voice, and Yaakov was not. So when he answered to the question, who are you? He said, Esau. But it was not very deep, right? So Yitzchak, he could not see, but he could hear. And something seemed not right, right? So he told him, you know what, come over here. I want to feel you to see if you're really my son, Esau. And the Torah says that he filled him, and he didn't realize that it's not Esau because of the trick of Rivka that she put the skin of the goats on him. Okay. ויאמר אליו יצחק אביו, גשנה ושקע לבני, ויגש וישק לו, וירח את ריח בגדיו ויברכהו, ויאמר ראה ריח בני כריח שדה אשר ברכו השם. And now, he gave him the bracha. Now, be aware, Yitzchak was sure at the time when he gave the blessing that the person in front of him is Esau. But actually it was Yaakov. Now what was the blessing that he gave him? It's very important. The first part is economy. ויתן לך האלוקים מטל השמיים ומשמני הארץ ורוב דגן ותירוש. Meaning everything that you will need physically, you will have. Now, this is the important part from our point of view. He says to Yaakov, when he was sure it's Esau, he said to him the following, יעבדוך עמים. Nation will work for you. וישתחוו לך לאומים. Nations will bow down to you. הווה גביר לאחיך וישתחוו לך בני אמך. And here he put him as a leader. Gvir is a leader to your brother. Now, according to the knowledge that Yitzchak has, it seems very right, because he is the firstborn. So it's very right that Esau will lead over Yaakov. But the fact was that he was giving the blessing to Yaakov without knowing. But he put him as a leader to his brother. Right? Meaning your mother's son will bow down to you. Meaning they will be under you. You'll be their authority. Fine. So, and he actually said even something more than that. If somebody will curse you, he will be cursed. And everybody that will bless you will be blessed. Okay. Yaakov got the bracha, he went out, and the Torah described that the minute he opened the door to get out, Esau came from the other door. And Esau came, made the food, came to his father and said, okay, the food is ready.
Bless me, my father.
Bless me, my father. His father says, what's going on? I ate already and I gave the bracha to somebody. And then he realized that something went wrong, right? But be aware of what happened at this time. ויהי כאשר קילה יצחק לברך את יעקב, ויהי אך יצא יעקב מפני יצחק אביו, ועשיו אחיו בא מצדו. Esau just came. ויעש גם הוא מטעמים, ויבא לאביו, ויאמר לאביו, יקום אביו ויאכל מצד בנו, בעבור תברך אני נפשך. So Yitzchak realized there's something wrong, ויאמר לו יצחק אביו, מי אתה? Who are you? ויאמר, אני בנך בכורך עשיו. So what was the response of Yitzchak to this? The Torah described the following: ויחרד יצחק חרדה גדולה עד מאוד. I don't know, he was trembled fine. In a very great, he was completely uncomfortable or shocked. ויאמר, and he says, מי איפה הוא עצת ציד ויבא לי ואוכל מכל בטרם תבוא. So somebody came and gave me food, and I ate, and I blessed him. So in a way, when Yitzchak realized that he gave the blessing not to the person that he really meant to give it to him, what could be or should be his response? What a liar! It's cancelled. But he didn't say that. You know why? Because before he said that anybody that will curse you, he said to Yaakov, when he didn't realize, he said anybody that will curse you will be cursed. Anybody that will bless you will be blessed. So he could not now curse him instead, right? So, actually what he said, who is the one that gave me and I ate already and I blessed him? Look at the following. Gam baruch yeh. Gam baruch yeh. Indeed, he will remain blessed. Meaning, I didn't mean to bless him. But if he got the blessing, it's probably that the way it should be. He was sure that it's not by chance. He was not sure how to explain this, and he still has a problem. Why? Because now he realized that he gave the right to the younger to rule over the older. So he was still confused, but he said, I don't know what's happening here, but it didn't happen just by chance. Now, Esau also realized now that Yaakov took the bracha from him, right? He was very, very mad and angry. And look what happened. כי שמוע עשיו את דברי אביו, ויצעק צעקה גדולה ומרה עד מאוד. ויאמר לאביו, ברכני גם אני אבי. He went crazy. And he begged his father, please beg me also, bless me also. ויאמר, his father says the following, ויאמר, בא אחיך במרמה ויקח ברכתך. See the translation? Your brother came with cleverness and took your blessing. Cleverness, it seems like what we call in modern Hebrew a washed word. You know what washed word? You have a negative, very strong word. You want to say it nicely, right? So you washed it up. So bemirma in Hebrew, it apparently was trickiness. Trick, right? But how the translation, this translation is good. It was a cleverness. He took it. Okay.
In Hebrew, it's cheating.
Cheating, yeah, in English. Cheat. Okay. So what was the response of Yaakov? After Yitzchak realized that it was Yaakov, and Yaakov took it in cleverness, right? What was the response of Esau? He said the following, Vayomer, here's Esau speaking, Vayomer, הכי קרא שמו יעקב, ויעקבני זה פעמיים, את בכורתי לקח, והנה אתה לקח ברכתי. ויאמר הלא עצרת לי ברכה. Here three things happen at once in those verses. What happened? Esau complained about Yaakov. He was obviously very mad at him. And he said, his name Yaakov is very fit him. Why? Because what Yaakov is, it's connected to the word akev, right? But it also means in Hebrew, trickiness, sneakiness. Sneaky is okva, mirma. So he blaming Yaakov now that Yaakov tricked him twice.
Told him.
And here, by the complaint, he said something that Yitzchak, after he realized that, felt very good about. What? What was the complaint? Yaakov, he tricked me twice. His name really fit him. He made me sell the firstborn rights to him many years ago. Et bechorati lakach, v'hineh ata lakach birchati. And now he's taking also my blessing. Be aware of something very interesting. How do you say blessing in Hebrew? Bracha. How do you say firstborn in Hebrew? Bechorah. If you take the letters, the same letters. The same letters in Hebrew. Bechorah, bet chaf resh hey, and beracha, bet resh chaf hey. Right? So it's not just by chance. Because what was the blessing? The blessing was who is the senior over the other. So the bracha was relating to the Bechorah, who is the senior, right? And Esau made the connection between those two when he complained about Yaakov. And by the way, he made Yitzchak feeling better. Why? What was the confusion of Yitzchak? He said, it's not right that I will give the rights to rule over for the younger. But only now, by the way, he learned that the firstborn rights was sold many years ago. So, everything is fine. Right? Vayan Yitzchak vayomer le'esav. So because of that, he was so sure about it, and he says the following, ויען יצחק ויאמר לעשו, הן גביר שמתיו לך, ואת כל אחיו נתתי לו לעבדים, ודגן ותירוש צמחתיו, ולך איפה מה אעשה בני. So he told him, you know what I gave him? I gave him the right to rule over you. Right? So, and I cannot change it. And because I cannot change it, everything that I'll give you, ask me to bless you, everything that I'll give you, that will not take away the state of Yaakov, will disappoint you. So anything that I'll give you, you will not be happy. Right? Esau didn't give up, and he said, ויאמר עשיו אל אביו, הברכה אחת היא לך אבי, only one blessing you have, ברכני גם אני אבי. Please bless me also, my father. ויישא עשיו כולו ויבך, and he was crying.
Unbelievable.
Now, look what happened. Yitzchak, in a way, could not change the fact that Yaakov is ruling over Esau. Esau wants a bracha, he's begging him for a blessing, right? So what Yitzchak gave him? Look at this. This is a blessing that Yitzchak gave Esau. ויען יצחק אביו ויאמר אליו, הנה משמני הארץ יהיה מושבך ומיטה לשמיים מעל, meaning you will dwell in a very good place, you will have anything that you want financially. We have no problem with that. From our point of view, they should be rich and they have everything that they need physically. Our problem, meaning the Jewish nation, the descendants of Yaakov, has a problem with the other part of the blessing. What else Yitzchak gave to Esau? He told him the following: "Ve'al charbecha tichye." You will live on your sword. Ve'et achicha ta'avod. He gave him the sword. Remember, he was a hunter, so he has arrow and bow, but now he got the sword. And the blessing that Yitzchak gave him is very interesting. It's so. There is a paradox over here. Sword is the source of death. So he blessed him, you will live on killing. You will live on death. But this sword could not be turned to your brother because you are under him. You are under him. Okay, we do not have time now to go to explain this, but that's the bracha that he gave him. Meaning he didn't change the fact that he is under his brother Yaakov. And he obviously didn't like it. He didn't like it. Now, be aware of this sword. This sword apparently could not be turned to Yaakov because he is under him. But there is a condition, there is in some situation that you could take off his yoke from upon your neck. When this is going to happen during the history, then the sword of Esau could be turned to Yaakov, meaning to the descendants of Yaakov. And here is the secret of the history. But let's go to the next pasuk, and here finally we're going to talk about anti-Semitism. Finally, right? We have a promise. That was the topic. Look at the next pasuk. This is pasuk mem. Let's go to pasuk mem aleph. ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו. ויאמר עשיו בליבו, יקרבו ימי אבל אבי, ואהרגה את יעקב אחי. Esau hated Yaakov because of the blessing of his father. But it's not just a regular hate. ויסתום in Hebrew, mastema, it's sinat mavet. I don't know how to say sinat mavet in English. Help me. Sinat mavet. Hate to death. Hate to death.
Furiously hatred.
Yeah, okay. Extreme hate. In a way that he wants to kill him. He now got to the conclusion, he got a strategic decision that he gonna kill Yaakov. That was his decision. It was a strategic decision. ויאמר עשיו בליבו יקרבו ימי אבל אבי ואהרגה את יעקב אחי. I will kill my brother Yaakov. About this pasuk and about this Esau says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great master of the Kabbalah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Tana. He says the following, and the source of it, it's not the Zohar, but ספרי פרשת בעלותך. אמר רבי שמעון בר יוחאי, הלכה היא בידוע שעשיו שונא ליעקב. It is a known principle that Esau hates Jacob. Esau and his descendants, and actually specifically from his descendants is the Edomites, and in the Edomites it's Amalek. Amalek was the grandson of Esau. Esau has many children. His firstborn of Esau, his name was Eliphaz. Eliphaz has many children. One of his children was Amalek. And Amalek is the one who is taking this flag of hate the Jews in a way that he wants to kill them and wipe them out from on earth. Okay. Now, this series of lectures is very long. I'm going to jump to the major point because I see that you are not in the very good shape weight-wise. So we will go to the major thing. I mean, I'll jump a lot during the history because here we just made the background to understand. Those are the key to understand historical events related to anti-Semitism. I want to jump many years since the time of Yaakov and Esau. Many events happened during the history, but let's go to the title, Israel and Germany, right? We know today, let's summarize the history of World War II, that during the history, every generation, we're saying this every Leil HaSeder, in the Haggadah של Pesach, שבכל דור ודור עומדים עלינו לכלותנו. In every generation, we are the most non-popular nation in the world. And it doesn't matter what we're going to do, they will always hate us. They're referring to the news of today, if you're hearing the news. It doesn't matter. You could be the most moral. That even you could not find anything like this. But we always blame that we are the bad guys, and everybody agree with this. Everybody, even our good friends, right? Anyway, in every generation, omdim aleinu lechalotenu. But if you go, you could see that the phenomena of anti-Semitism has different levels. The extremists during the history, if you follow the history, you will find always that they always the descendants of Esau. And that's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai meant over here when he said halachai. Halachai, this is clear cut, no questions about this. The leaders, those who lead anti-Semitism in the world, they are the descendants of Esau, and this is because of this. And again, we have to understand what really happened here. We spoke about the simple level, but in the deeper level, the hatred is not just between two nations. It's between what those two nations represent. And here is the constant conflict between what's more important, the physical or the spiritual. And Yaakov hold one way, Esau and the other nation of the world lead the other way, and around this is the entire war and the entire spiritual conflict between physical and spiritual. Now, 70 years ago, World War II. This is a very close event to us. And I believe everybody over here read a little bit about the ideology of the Nazis. The Nazis has this ideology. There is, a whole theory, a whole philosophy. Hitler, Yimach Shmo V'Zichro, wrote a whole book about this, even before he became a counselor. Right? Mein Kampf, he has a war against who? Against the Jews. And he didn't just wrote a book, he did it. He did it and he tried, and the idea of the Nazis was to kill every Jew, that non-Jews will stay in the world. Okay, I want to show you an amazing thing. World War II happened 70 years ago. If you want to go to the beginning, 1933, when the Nazis came into power in Germany. I want to show you a document that was written 1,500 years ago. Few words, few sentences in the Gemara. The Gemara was written, for sure, nobody could write it today. It was written there, and it was there, and the Gemara is in Masechet Megillah. Masechet Megillah is a Masechta in the Talmud, speaks about Purim and about Megillas Esther. And in Megillas Esther also we find a decree to kill all the Jews in the world, right? Haman. ויבקש המן להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את כל היהודים ביום אחד. So it's the same idea. It's the same idea of Hitler and the same idea of Esau. Because that's what Esau says over here. I want to kill Yaakov. Yaakov at the time was the entire Jewish nation at the time, right? Now, Haman, the Megillah Esther mentioned that Haman was from the descendants of Amalek. And Amalek we saw, he was the grandson of Esau. Haman, his father's name was Hamedata. Haman ben Hamedata. But he was Haman ben Hamedata Ha'agagi. Agag was the name of the king of Amalek at the time of Shaul HaMelech. And this mentioned in the Tanakh already. That it was a whole war, and Shmuel HaNavi sent Shaul to kill Amalek, because Amalek was the first nation that initiated a war against the Jewish nation after Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? So all of this mentioned in the Tanakh. Then, Achashverosh in Persia, he was a Persian. But he put Haman, which was not a Persian, he was Agagites, meaning from Edom, from Amalek, he put him as the prime minister. The chapter 3 in Megillat Esther. ויהי אחר הדברים האלה, גידל המלך אחשוורוש את המן בן המדתה האגגי, וינשאהו, וישם את כיסאו מעל כל השרים. And he put him as a prime minister in his government. And he was the one who who initiate להשמיד, להרוג ולאבד את כל היהודים ביום אחד. So it's the same thing. It's Esav, Amalek, Agag, Haman, and now we're going to Hitler. How Hitler connected to this? The Tanakh finished to be written 2,300 years ago. The last description, history-wise, in the Tanakh is the time of the rebuilding of the Second Temple, which is 2,300 years ago approximately, right? The Talmud, the Gemara, was written 1,500 years ago. In any case, it's long time before the Nazis and before World War II, right? Now, the Gemara in Masechet Megillah that deals with Megillas Esther and Purim, by the way, have a discussion over there about the conflict between Yaakov and Esav, as we saw it over here in the verses in the Tanakh, right? Let me show you few lines from the Gemara Masechet Megillah, and again, remember, this text is 1,500 years ago old, at least. I'm going to skip a lot, because if not, we're going to finish in the morning. By the way, believe it or not, in Hebrew, I could give this entire lecture for 2.5 hours. But in English, to translate it, I'm breaking my teeth. It's much longer. Okay. Before we see the Gemara in Masechet Megillah, let's learn a verse in Psalms, in Tehillim. Pasuk b'Tehillim. The Pasuk says the following: Al titen Hashem ma'avaye rasha, zmamo al tafek yarum usel. This is the verse. Try to translate it. Al titen Hashem ma'avaye rasha. Somebody is praying to God and says to God, please Hashem, please God, don't let the wicked one to fulfill his wishes. Because he is a wicked and his wishes are nasty and are really scared. So don't let him fulfill his wishes. Zmamo al tafek yarum usel. How they translate it over here? Do not grant his...
Conspiracy.
What is this exactly?
Conspiracy.
I don't know what this is. Conspiracy?
Yes.
Okay, conspiracy, yeah. His mezima, his conspiracy, don't let him actualize it. Okay? Now, apparently who wrote this? Who is the person who's praying over here? David, because David wrote Tehillim. But we have to know that David HaMelech didn't write the entire Tehillim. Many of them, the chapters of Tehillim was written by David. As you said, and many of them, Mizmor LeDavid. So David said them. But there are verses or chapters in Tehillim that started with Tfilah LeMoshe Ish HaElokim. So Moshe Rabbeinu said it, and David HaMelech wrote it in Tehillim. Or Mizmor LeAsaf, or Mizmor LeVnei Korach. But the vast majority of the verses in Tehillim are related to David HaMelech. But David HaMelech, the Gemara says, quote some chapters or some verses in the chapters from other people. So the Gemara in Masechet Megillah, when the Gemara discuss the conflict between Esav and Yaakov and their descendants, the Gemara brings this pasuk, and the Gemara says something amazing about this verse. Look at this. From Tehillim, we're going now to the Gemara in Masechet Megillah in Daf Vav Amud Aleph. The Gemara says the following: V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak, מה נכתיב? What is the meaning of this verse? אל תיתן השם מעביה רשע זממו אל תפק ירום מוסר. So the Gemara teaches us, says Rabbi Yitzchak in the Talmud, I learned from my Rebbe, that learned from his Rebbe, that learned, it goes back to the Nevi'im who wrote this pasuk, that this pasuk actually it's a quote in Tehillim from the mouth of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov says this prayer. Yaakov was praying over here. And Yaakov says, Amar Yaakov לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא. Yaakov speaks in front of Hashem and he says the following, ריבונו של עולם, the master of the universe, אל תיתן לעשיו הרשע תאוות ליבו. The wicked one that we're speaking about over here is Esav. And he is a wicked because he has a desire in his heart. What was it, the desire of his heart? Let me just remind you again the decision of Esav. ויסתום עשיו את יעקב על הברכה אשר ברכו אביו ויאמר עשיו בליבו יקרבו ימי אבל אביו והרגה את יעקב אחי. So what's the desire of the heart of Esav? To kill Yaakov. Yaakov very scared, he's praying to God and he says, please don't let him do it. What? To kill me. אמר יעקב לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, ריבונו של עולם, Master of the universe, אל תיתן לעשו הרשע תאוות ליבו. Now, what is the continuation, the conspiracy? What? זממו אל תפק. Explain the Gemara, 1500 years ago. זממו אל תפק, says the Gemara, זו גרמניה של אדום, שאילמה להם יוצאים, מחריבים כל העולם כולו. What's זממו? What's the conspiracy that we're talking about? So the Gemara says that Yaakov referred to a nation, descendants of Edom, and we know that Edom is Esav, al ken kara shmo Edom, Esav hu avi Edom. So the Gemara says will be a nation, descendants of Esav, of Edom, and the name of this nation is Germania. And it's written over here in the Gemara with double mem, as you see, Germania. Okay? Zo Germania shel Edom. So says Yaakov, I'm really scared of them. Why? See, be aware of what he's saying. What he's scared about them. She'ilma lehem yotzim, that if they will get out from their place, macharivim kol ha'olam kulo. They will destroy the entire world. And the meaning of it, which world? The world meaning the world of the Jewish nation. How? Because it's connected to this. What is ta'avat libo? Ta'avat libo is to kill Yaakov. So if they will get out, when they will come to power and they will get out of a place, they will conquer the world, and in the world they will chase the descendants of Yaakov and kill them. That's what the Gemara says about this pasuk 1500 years ago. The only seems little problem over here that in Hebrew, how do you say Germany in Hebrew? Germania. So it should be Gimel Resh Mem Nun Yud. Aleph or Hey, it doesn't matter, but the mem over here is problematic. If it was written Germany, Germania, that was bingo, right? But I gave you over here the original. The original, the Gemara until today, in every Talmud you could see, it's written Germania. But why I'm bringing it to you, in order to show you something even more amazing. Rashi is a commentator, one of the biggest commentators, right? He wrote explanation for the entire Tanakh and for the entire Talmud. So when Rashi explains Zo Germania shel Edom, says Rashi the following: Germania, Shem Malchut vehi me'Edom, a name of monarchy from the kingdom of Edom. Now be aware of the following. It's very important to be aware of the timing. The Gemara was written 1500 years ago. Rashi lived 900 years ago. Germany that we know, the modern Germany that we know, is not that old nation or state in Europe. Anybody knows since when on the map of Europe you could find a country called Germany? How long ago Germany established? 1871, at the time of Bismarck. Before that were many German tribes, many, no connection between them. Bismarck put them together and he established Germany. So we're talking about 1971, how many years ago? 1871. 140 something, right? 144 years. That's it. The Gemara speaks about a nation called Germany, or Germania, 1500 years ago. And the Gemara says that Yaakov is very scared that they will conquer the world. So we're talking about a world war, right? The Gemara says that. Rashi explained, we're talking about a monarchy. It's not just a tribe. It's a monarchy. It's a big state with a big desire to conquer the world. It's not the interest of a tribe, right? But here comes the amazing thing. Can I assume that everybody in this room heard about the Vilna Gaon? HaGaon MiVilna, right? Okay, very well known, the Gaon, the HaGaon MiVilna. What do you have to know that the Vilna Gaon passed away 210 years ago, passed away, and he was very old when he passed away. Okay? 210 years is approximately 70 years before Bismarck. And a lot more, it's 180 years before, it's 70 years before Bismarck, 100 and something years before Hitler. The Vilna Gaon was a great genius. Gaon in English, in Hebrew is genius. And he knew the entire Torah. And he wrote many books, especially in Kabbalah. One of his major works, his small works, were that he learned the entire Talmud. And in few different places in the Talmud, he wrote down a few lines next to the Talmud. When the Vilna Gaon get to this Gemara, before Bismarck, and before Hitler for sure, he wrote a comment. You want to see it? And we says the Vilna Gaon, הגאות הגר"א, הגר"א זה ראשי תיבות, הגאון רבי אליהו, רבי אליהו וילנה גאון, he says, גרמניה, צריך לומר גרמניה, the proper reading is Germania. And he wrote it more than 200 years ago. So he said it's a mistake in the Gemara. It's, instead of double mem, it should be mem nun, Germania. And it's not just the Vilna Gaon. There is another great scholar that less known than the Vilna Gaon. His name is Rabbi Yaakov Emdi. He was a Rav of a whole community in Germany 250 years ago, 50 years before the Gaon. At the time, the place was not called Germany, right? But when he got to this, he said also in his comment, נכתב בצידו, כמדומה רצונו לומר גרמניה היא אשכנז שלנו. It is likely that this referred to Germania, our Ashkenaz. That's what he wrote 250 years ago. Now you have to understand that even the word Ashkenaz mixed up today or mislead, because Ashkenaz is Deutschland. Now we call all the Jews that came from Europe Ashkenazim, right? But it's not true. Ashkenaz is only Germany. In the original, Ashkenaz is Germany, right? So at the time of the Rabbi Yaakov Emdi, was no such a place in the world called Germany or even Deutschland. So he said at the time, you know, the right way is to say over here instead of Germania, Germania. And if you do want to know what is this, this is Ashkenaz. He wrote it 250 years ago. So if you go back to the Gemara, it's amazing. The Gemara says, 1500 years ago, that the Gemara connected it to Yaakov Avinu and the conflict that he has personally with Esav, his brother, right? And it's referred to that the decision of Esav to kill Yaakov, and Yaakov was afraid and prayed to God, please don't let him do this. And he says, I'm afraid specifically from a nation called Germania, when at the time was no such a thing, not at the time of the Gemara, and for sure not at the time of Yaakov, right? 3,000 years ago. And he said, I'm afraid of what? If they will get out, they will kill, they will involve in the world worship. World war. Wow. And when you look at it today, from our point of view of the history, it's amazing. Because we now after it, and you could see that it was written. It was written. Anti-Semitism. Let's summarize it because we know we're getting. It's become late. Not the time, but the way some of you looks over here. From my point of view, I know everybody is. I see everybody.
But the Muslim is not even the Yaakov.
That's true because the Muslim is not connected to this.
Yes, that's not.
In a way, they are not connected. You know, look, the Muslim. We have. Okay, you know what you mentioned. That I'll just go a little bit in this. After the destruction of the second temple, we're going to mention that next week by the Tzom of Tisha B'Av, right? Next week, Monday night is Tisha B'Av. In Tisha B'Av, our first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and the second one, the same day. After the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, two major religions came to existence, the Christians and the Muslims. What we have to know, I cannot go now to details. This is, for me, it's amazing. I loved to learn it at the time, and I love to teach it, but I need much more than one lecture of hour and a half. If you're interested, if we could go through this and to see how the Torah and the different levels of the Torah describe the history. But what we have to know, that those two nations came out of Judaism. Christianity for sure, because the first Christians were Jews, right? Their God was Jewish, and all his disciples in the beginning were Jewish, right? And they came out of us, and they established an amazing, major, big religion. The Gemara over here, the thing that I want to skip because it's wrong, mention that there is a connection between Germany of Edom and Rome. Rome. So this is a continuation of the Gemara. But the Gemara said that there will be they will work together. Rome and the Germans. And if you look at World War II, you will see that it was such a connection. The only ally of Nazi Germany during World War II in Europe was Mussolini of Italy, which is Rome. So Rome is connected in different places. For example, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple. The Romans called by the language of our sages, of Chazal, Galut Edom, meaning that Rome is Edom. It's connected to Edom. So what we know is Germany connected to Edom, and Italy, Rome connected to Edom. And in Italy, they established the major place of Christianity, the Vatican, right? It's in Italy. The Romans give it power. The Roman makes it, right? So what we have to know is the following. That's from Esav, Edom, Rome came the Christian religion, Christianity. From Yishmael, which was the brother of Yitzchak, came the Muslims, the Islam. According to their tradition and our tradition, Ishmael is the father of the Arab nations. So we have to know that there are two arms that came from our forefathers. Esau and Christians came from Esau, which was the son of Yitzchak, and the Muslim came from Ishmael, which was the son of Abraham. And these two nations are those who are against you have to know, we are alone. We have no friend in all real, true friends. We have friends of interests here or there, but we do not have any friends. And the big prophets the only prophets of the nations, which was Bilam, said it clearly. He said it in his nevuah. He said, Hen am levadad yishkon. He speaks about us. We are alone. We have no friends, real friends. And everybody is against us. But we have to differentiate between the Muslims to the Christians. Biologically, there are איך אומרים את זה באנגלית? מבחינה גנולוגית, how do you say גנולוגית? Genealogy, right. Thank you. Genealogy, the Muslims are connected to Ishmael, and the Christian connected to Esau. Now, the Zohar explained amazingly that they're gonna cooperate during the history, and especially at the end of time. They will go together against us. The Zohar explained this. But we have to know that everything that we spoke about in this lecture speaks about Esau and Germany. And if you want, Rome, okay? But not the Arabs. The Arabs is a different story. By the way, there is a connection between them that mentioned even in the Tanakh. With this, we'll finish. We'll finish this session. It's mentioned, if you remember, that Esau has two wives. And when he was 40 years old, he got married to Bnot Chet. Bnot Chet were from the Canaanites, Chittiya, Moriah, and the Torah mentioned that when he got married to those Bnot Chet, Vatiyena Morat Ruach, LeYitzchak uLeRivka. Yitzchak and Rivka was very not happy with this shidduch of Esau with this Bnot Chet. Later on, after the story with Yaakov happened, and Rivka told him, look, Esau wants to kill you, so run away to my brother Lavan, and get married over there. So Esau saw that Yitzchak and Rivka blessed Yaakov and sent them to Lavan. He got the hint that it was not, his parents were not happy, especially his father. He was scared about his father, that he's not happy with his marriage to Bnot Chet. So it's mentioned that in order to make his father happy, what did he do? He didn't went to Lavan. He went to Ishmael and married his daughter. You know what was the name of his daughter? Ishmael, which was the wife of Esau. So the Torah says, Vayelech Esav el Ishmael, Vayikach et machalat bat Ishmael, al nashav lo leisha. He took the sickness, machalat. She was the daughter of Ishmael, and he didn't divorce the two that his father didn't like, but he added. So the Vilna Gaon says, according to the Kabbalah, that here's the secret of what's going to happen at the end of days. Will be a connection. There is a connection of marriage between Esau to Ishmael, and that's gonna radiate to the history of the connection between Ishmael and Esau at the end of days. And that connected to Milchemet Gog uMagog, the big war that will be at the end of days before Mashiach will come. So there is a lot of details over here. But anyways, we have to know that when we speak about the current event, and now we're dealing with the Arabs, and not with all the Arabs, with the Palestinians, and not with all the Palestinians with Hamas. Of course, a lecture with a title like Anti-Semitism connect us with the news that we have. But we have to know, when we're talking about the anti-Semites, the root of them is not Ishmael, and is not the Arab, but Esau. But there is a connection. There is a connection, and there is another midrash that says that Amalek and other nation went at the time of Sancherib, when was the exile of the 10 tribes, they went to the desert and they mixed up with Ishmael. So we know that since the time of the Assyrians, Sancherib, Melech Ashur, they are mixed together. So in the Ishmaelites, which is the Arabs, they are mixed also Amalek, and that could explain the hatred that they have today and during the history. Anyway, what we have to do, we have to know that we have nothing to do but to go to our forefather, Yaakov, and pray to God. Please, the Master of the universe, don't let them do it. Don't let them actualize the hatred that they have. All what we could do is really to pray to God. To pray to God, and as I mentioned before, "Vehi she'amda la'avotenu velanu, shebechol dor vador omdim aleinu lechalotenu." In every generation, either from the descendants of Esau or from the descendants of Ishmael, ve'akadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. He has different ways to save us, but he's saving us. Al apam ve'al chamatam. Even after the World War II, when they not just wanted to kill us, but they killed us. But actually they failed. For them, if one Jew will stay alive after the war, for them it's a failure. And they killed 1/3 of the Jewish nation, but where are they today? They completely smashed, not completely, there are neo-Nazis too, even today, but Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai, al apam ve'al chamatam. Hashem matzilenu miyadam. Okay.
How do you, just one quick question, how do you define the Arab hatred that started really after the establishment of Eretz Israel and did not exist all
Establishment of what?
after the establishment of Eretz Israel?
Eretz Israel for the
not
state of
the
Israel.
state of Israel. Sorry.
That's not true. That's not true.
The Jews were living
Together,
on
very
our
nice.
soil very nicely.
Sorry,
And even
not
before
true.
1948, they were living in Eretz Israel.
Not true. Did you ever heard about the massacre in Hebron before the establishment of the state of Israel?
Oh, he's talking about the Moors. The Moors.
I just
empire
want to,
took all the Jews.
if you want, I just will show you one of the works of the Rambam, Maimonides, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon. He wrote a whole letter to the Jews in Yemen. It was Igeret Teiman. And the Rambam, we're talking about 1800 years ago at least, he said, there is no nation that hate us more than the Arab and the Muslims. He wrote it 800 years ago. So this, it's not, and they made the decrees on us. It's not true. It's not true. They weren't our best friend until Ben Gurion.
It's not like
It was not true.
Like,
It's
like,
not-
like in the Edomite list. It's not like that.
They
Okay.
were tolerant, doesn't mean they didn't hate
It's
us.
not
They
even
didn't
true
hate
about this. It's not even true about this. If you want, I will show you Rabbeinu Bechaye. Rabbeinu Bechaye was the student, the disciple of the Ramban. And he says about the pasuk, Oivecha v'sonecha. And he explained the difference between Oyev and Soneh. And he said that the hatred of the Muslim to us, as a nation, is greater and bigger than the Christians to us. It's amazing. But it seems, okay, we have to understand, all of this, it's not true. It's not true. We are alone. And Bilam realized this. And we better realize this. Because we are naive when we think that we have friends. We see, just analyze the history. Hen am levadad yishkon. We are the nation of God. And Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Ve'ata Echad, ve'shimcha Echad, u'mikam Yisrael goy Echad. And what actually, the real essence of anti-Semitism, it's not that they hating us. Of course they're hating us, but they're hating what we represent. We gave them the Torah. We gave the Tanakh to the world. All the prophets was Jewish. And they understand it. And they, in a way, appreciate it. And say, we are the chosen people, right? We are the chosen people, and yet we are the most hated people by them. By them. By those people who think that we are the chosen people. How do you explain this? The explanation is, in brief, we made them a big problem when we gave the world, the human race, the Torah. Why? Because the Torah has demands. You have to be moral. We gave them the moral. And they do not want. And this ambivalent attitude is from the one way, it's the right, absolute spiritual truth. Chosen people. They got the Torah, they're the revelation at Sinai. But deep inside, because they do not want it, therefore they hate us. This is the deep understanding, and that the Gemara speaks about this. Lama nikra shmo Har Sinai? Why Har Sinai called Har Sinai? So the Gemara says, Sheshama yarda sin'a la'olam. When we got the Torah, then came the hatred to the nations of the world against us, because how come you are the only one who knows the absolute truth? You are the only one that God talked to you as a nation? Well, it's much more complicated, but that's what we could cover now. Okay, thank you for your attention. I hope everybody gains something from it. Anybody who actually wants to learn even more, there is a lot more. I just want to... let's see if I have it over here. Anybody who wants... It speaks about Nazi Germany and the Nuremberg trial and a lot, and going on and on and on and on. It's very big things. But anybody who wants to learn more, I just could refer you to my website. And where is it? No? Oh, here. I have Facebook. I'll be happy that all of you will be my friends in Facebook. Yeah? And I have a channel in YouTube. But this is the address. Don't try to find it in the regular YouTube. This is the address. You could just write it down. Over there I have more than 110 lectures. Most of them in Hebrew, but there are a few in English. Hopefully this one also will be there tomorrow morning. I'm just recording it and put it on. So that's the way to learn more, even in your free time. When you have time, just, I think everybody could gain something from it. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I want to thank the hostess of this lecture in their house. Be blessed, and Hashem will give you a lot of bracha, and your house should be a source of Torah and learning and wisdom. And hope to see you soon in different events.
Before everybody